Over the last several months, a pattern of user reports has emerged on Microsoft's support forums, on third-party tech communities, and through various reporting channels, describing specific situations in which Windows 11 users are losing access to files following security updates. The reports are not uniform, and the specific nature of the issue varies across cases. Some users report that files have disappeared entirely. Some users report that files are present but cannot be opened. Some users report that specific directories that used to be accessible no longer are. Some users report that the issue resolved itself after subsequent updates. Some users report that the issue persists and that their files have been effectively lost. The pattern, taken together, suggests that something in the recent update cycle has been producing file access problems for a meaningful number of users, and that the specific mechanisms are not well understood either by the affected users or, apparently, by Microsoft support. I want to walk you through what the reports describe, what the plausible causes are, what the specific steps are for users who encounter this issue, and what the broader implications are for how users should approach Windows updates in 2026. Let me start by being careful about what I am claiming. I am not claiming that Windows updates are routinely destroying user files in a systematic way. The vast majority of Windows updates apply cleanly and do not cause file problems. The specific cases I am describing are a minority of update experiences, but they are a meaningful minority, and the pattern is worth describing because the experience of losing access to your files is severe enough that even a minority pattern matters to affected users. The specific types of file access problems that have been reported include the following. The first type is files that appear to have disappeared from their expected locations. Users report that they updated Windows, restarted, and found that specific files or folders were no longer present in the file manager. The files were previously confirmed present. After the update, they cannot be found through normal navigation. The second type is files that are visible but inaccessible. Users report that files appear in the file manager with their names and icons, but that opening the file produces an error. The specific errors vary, including access denied errors, file not found errors, despite the file appearing to be present, and errors indicating that the file is corrupted. The third type is files that are accessible but have changed permissions. Users report that files that they previously had full access to now require administrator permissions to open or modify. The permission changes are not always reversible through normal means. The fourth type is files that are linked to applications that no longer open them. Users report that their files are present, but that the applications that were associated with those files fail to open them after the update. The specific applications that fail vary, and the pattern often involves specific file formats that depend on specific codecs or drivers that may have been affected by the update. The fifth type is files stored in specific locations, particularly in WinRTV folders that have specific synchronization issues after an update. Users report that their WinRTV files are either not syncing, are syncing in unexpected ways, or have duplicate versions that need manual reconciliation. The plausible causes for these various file access issues include several. The first cause is changes to file system permissions and access controls. Windows updates sometimes modify the default permissions on certain system directories or on directories where applications expect to find specific files. Users whose files are in locations that the update affects may find that the update has changed the permissions and that their access is different from before. The second cause is changes to the encryption and security infrastructure. Windows has BitLocker, Windows Hello, and various other security features that can affect file access. Updates that modify these features can sometimes result in files becoming temporarily or permanently inaccessible due to key management issues or encryption state changes. The third cause is changes to the storage and file system components. Windows 11 updates have, at various points, modified the specific drivers and services that handle storage. Some of these modifications have had unintended consequences for specific configurations, particularly for users with non-standard storage setups, including specific RAID configurations, external drives that are treated as system storage, and drives that are shared with other operating systems on dual boot configurations. The fourth cause is changes to OneDrive and the cloud integration. Microsoft has been progressively integrating OneDrive more deeply into the Windows file system, and the integration has created specific failure modes that did not exist when OneDrive was a separate application. Updates that modify the OneDrive integration can affect files that are stored in OneDrive Sync folders, sometimes in ways that are not immediately obvious. The fifth cause is changes to application compatibility. Windows updates sometimes include changes that affect the compatibility of specific applications with the file formats they handle. If an application is affected and is required to open specific files, those files become effectively inaccessible until the application compatibility issue is resolved. For users who encounter file access issues after a Windows update, the specific steps to take are several. The first step is to not panic. Most file access issues after updates have resolutions, and the files themselves are typically still present on the storage device even when they appear to be inaccessible. The immediate response should be to stop using the machine for anything that might overwrite the storage until you have established what is going on. The second step is to check the basic places where files might be. The files may have been moved to a different directory, to the OneDrive folder you use OneDrive, or to the recycle bin. Windows Search, which indexes file names, can often find files that have been relocated. The third step is to check file permissions and ownership. Right-clicking a file or folder, selecting Properties, and looking at the Security tab shows the current permissions. If the permissions have changed in ways that prevent your access, you may be able to restore them by taking ownership of the files, though this requires administrator access. The fourth step is to check the OneDrive status. If you use OneDrive, the specific state of your OneDrive sync may explain apparent file disappearances. Files that are in the cloud but not locally cached may appear with specific icons that indicate their status, and the cloud files may be accessible through the OneDrive website even if they appear missing locally. The fifth step is to check the Windows.old folder if it exists. Windows updates that involve major changes sometimes create a Windows.old folder that contains files from the previous state of the system. If your files were in specific system-adjacent locations, they may be in the Windows.old folder even if they are not in the expected current location. The sixth step is to try rolling back the update. Windows allows, within a specific time window after an update, rolling back to the previous state. If the update is the cause of the file issues, rolling back can restore access. The rollback has its own risks and should not be done without understanding what it will change. The seventh step, for severe cases, is to use data recovery tools. If files are not present in the normal locations and cannot be restored through the routine means, specific data recovery tools can sometimes retrieve files that are present on the storage but not visible through the file system. These tools vary in effectiveness and in cost. The broader observation I want to make is that the pattern of file access issues after Windows updates is a specific argument for maintaining careful backups of your data. The specific causes of file loss are not always the user's fault. The operating system can, through updates, produce situations where your files are inaccessible through no action on your part. The protection against this is backups, stored separately from your primary machine, that you can restore from if something goes wrong. The specific backup strategy depends on your situation. For most users, a combination of cloud backup through a reputable service, plus a local backup to an external drive is sufficient. For users with specific high-value files, additional backup redundancy is advisable. For users who are concerned about specific risks, offline backups that are not connected to the network protect against scenarios that online backups do not. The backup advice applies to users of any operating system, but it is particularly relevant in 2026 given the specific pattern of issues I described. An operating system that occasionally produces file access issues after updates is an operating system that you should have backups for. The backups protect you not against any specific failure mode, but against the general possibility that something will go wrong. Subscribe for the next video, which covers the specific backup strategies for Windows, Mac, and Linux users, including the tools, the configurations, and the specific test procedures to verify that your backups are actually working. And in the comments, tell me whether you have ever had files affected by a Windows update and how you recovered. The specific recovery experiences of users who have been through this are useful for others who may face the same situation.